What's up, YouTube? How's everybody doing? I hope you all are having a great weekend. Today, I wanted to do a video about Clover Health, ticker CLOV. Now, this company has been getting a lot of hype the past couple of days in the media, on the news, on forums like Wall Street Bets and other subreddits, because there's a lot of interest in the short squeeze potential. Now, if everyone recalls, Gamestop got squeezed and the stock jumped up so much because it had a lot of short interest, over 140% short interest. Now, people have discovered that this new SPAC, Clover, also has over 140% short interest. And so now everybody is talking about this is going to be the next GME, this is going to be the next short squeeze, and we can do it, guys, let's squeeze this thing. So this caught my attention, and I've taken the liberty of doing some due diligence so you guys don't have to. Please hit the like button, please subscribe, and if you like my content and want to support my channel, please check out my Patreon, link in the description down below. I was very curious, so I conducted my own due diligence to see if I would be making a play and participating in this part of the GME saga, because technically this is still all part of the GME saga, like Fubo, ASO. I consider all of this still part of the GME saga because it all started with GME, and now the fight is continuing on other battlefields of different stocks. So what we're going to cover today is we're going to go over what is Clover, what they do, and is it a good company. Then we're going to talk about the Hindenburg report. And for those of you who don't know, Hindenburg is, it's kind of like a fusion of a private investigation firm and a short selling firm. So they're short sellers and they do their own investigations on companies that they might potentially short. Most recently, they were famous for coming out with a report on Nikola, ticker NKLA, and Hindenburg exposed them for pretty much misleading investors and committing fraud, because Nikola came out with this electric truck, this EV truck, and they deceived investors by making it seem like it was able to drive on its own, when in reality, they just rolled the truck down a hill and filmed it. Also, in addition, at one of their demos, at one of their demonstrations, they actually had the car plugged in from the bottom, but you couldn't see it because it was on stage, so everyone assumed that it could run and drive on its own, but in reality, it could not. And they also did a report on Candy, which is a smaller Chinese EV company, and I've read both of those reports, and I will just say that Hindenburg does have a pretty good track record when it comes to these things, when it comes to exposing frauds. So we're going to go over Hindenburg's report and their opinions on Clover, and then we're going to talk about Clover's response to Hindenburg's report. And then we're going to talk about Hindenburg's response to Clover's response. And then we're going to talk about the open short interest data and how accurate that short interest data is. So a good amount of stuff to get to today. So stay right there. Let's get right into it. So let's first take a look at what Clover Health is. So Clover Health has been around for a couple of years now, but it's always been a private company. And it recently went public via SPAC on January 8th, 2021. And this was taken public by Social Capital, which is Chamath Palihapitiya's firm. He owns Social Capital. And for those of you who don't know, Chamath Palihapitiya is somewhat of a celebrity, especially of late on Wall Street, especially with retail investors. Well, a lot of retail investors love him, and a lot of them hate him. It doesn't seem like there's really an in-between. It seemed like he was on our side when the whole GME saga first started happening. Now people have mixed feelings about Chamath. So, but just putting that out there. Chamath's social capital took Clover Health public via SPAC on January 8th. So Chamath does have a big stake in this company. So basically, Clover Health it's a combination of a healthcare company, an insurance company, and a technology company. That's what they claim, at least. So let's take a look at their website. So they advertise themselves as a competitor to Medicare. You see over here, they advertise zero to low premiums and copays, low cost, and they include things like dental, vision, and hearing, easy access to doctors. Apparently, they have a large network of doctors. They cover over-the-counter items such as thermometers, vitamins, allergy tablets, cough drops, Band-Aids. They can connect you either in person, or if you want to see a doctor virtually, you can do that now. They cover prescription drugs, and one of their big products that they advertise a lot is the Clover Assistant. And this is the technology side of the company, where they claim they developed this software that makes the jobs of doctors much easier and allows them to treat patients much easier. Yeah, so it says here they've been around since 2013, so 8 years now. It seems like they're still a relatively small company, which is to be expected because they didn't go public too long ago, although they have been private for 8 years. But it says they only operate in select counties in Arizona, Georgia, Mississippi, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Texas. That's where they currently operate. So you see here, they compare themselves versus traditional Medicare. Part A Medicare covers 80% of all your hospital expenses. Part B Medicare covers 80% of your doctor expenses. And they're advertising what's better about Clover is that you can get all those benefits from Part A and B, but also have access to prescription drugs, which are not included in the original Medicare's Part A and B. And they say that they can also do it at a very competitive price. I'm not sure how much they charge. I think it's different. You get a quote depending on your health. But they claim that they have very competitive prices. And here you see they advertise to doctors and physicians. It says their technology gives them access to lab results, prescription lists, and previous diagnoses, including those from other doctors. And if you see a new physician, those new physicians will be able to access your old health records with ease, and therefore they can understand how to treat you better. Also, Clover is paying the physicians double what traditional Medicare offers. So I think that's a big selling point, an incentive for physicians to actually use Clover. So yeah, at first glance, it looks like Clover is a pretty decent company. They claim to help their patients by giving them competitive rates and a better product. And they claim to help doctors by making their lives easier and compensating them more for using Clover's technology. But Hindenburg has done their own investigation and has come out with some pretty significant findings and accusations. So now let's get into what Hindenburg has to say about Clover Health. It reads, Clover Health, how the king of SPACs lured retail investors into a broken business facing an active undisclosed DOJ investigation. And they refer to king of SPACs. They're referring to Chamath Palihapitiya. If you guys want, go check this report out, and you can check out the response by Clover, which we'll get to in just a second, and then you can check out Hindenburg's response to Clover, which we'll get to also in just a little bit. And I'm going to post all these links in the description. Go check that out if you want. Now, this report is very long. There's a lot of pages in this. It's a very detailed report, as is all of Hindenburg's reports. I haven't read too many, but I've read about 3 of them so far, and every single one was like thick, all right? I'm talking like at least 50 pages, like 50 to 100 pages. They really investigate thoroughly and write a very extensive report on their findings. Again, I'm not supporting Hindenburg, okay? I don't have a bias towards Hindenburg. I'm just disclosing that I have read a lot of their stuff before, and I can say that they usually know what they're talking about, all right? They also claim they do not have a position in Clover. They just simply investigated Clover, and they're coming out with their findings and making it public. I don't know how true this is. I don't know why you would investigate a company for wrongdoing and invest time and resource into this and not take a position on it. So that seems a little odd to me, but I'm not saying they're lying, but that definitely does seem a little bit odd, don't you guys think? So why exactly did you conduct this investigation? Are you just doing it for fun? Are you doing it for the moral good of the public? Are you trying to protect unsuspecting investors? I don't know, but that is a bit odd, I'll just say. Okay, I'm not going to read the whole report to you guys, because obviously we'd be here all day, but I did already read this, so I'm just going to summarize everything to you guys as best as I can. I probably can't get to everything because there's really a lot here, so if you want to check it out for yourself, go ahead. They claim that they've been doing an investigation on Clover for about 4 months, and during this investigation, they've interviewed former employees, competitors, industry experts, and doctors that have used the Clover platform. They also claim that they've reviewed thousands of pages of the company's documents. So Hindenburg starts off by claiming that Chamath misled investors about the company. There's an active investigation by the Department of Justice, the DOJ, into Clover and its Clover Assistant technology. The DOJ is accusing Clover of giving out kickbacks, conducting dishonest marketing, and not disclosing third-party deals that they have made. And Hindenburg believes that these accusations by the DOJ against Clover are true. So Hindenburg claims that Chamath misled investors because he knew that there was an active investigation ongoing about Clover, which he did not disclose to the public and did not disclose to investors. They're claiming that either he knew and he did not disclose this to investors, or he was just completely clueless, and in either situation, both are completely unacceptable. Hindenburg claims Clover makes most of its money from undisclosed third-party deals and by targeting vulnerable people such as the elderly and minorities. Clover was fined in 2016 for misleading marketing practices, and Hindenburg claims that they interviewed a former employee claiming that the fine was so small, being only a little over $106,000. It was really just a slap on the wrist for Clover. They just took it as a cost of doing business because the amount of money and revenue they were bringing in compared to this $106,000 that they had to pay was nothing. So they were really just incentivized to keep misleading investors and conducting misleading marketing practices. Hindenburg claims that Clover owns a subsidiary called Seek Insurance, and the two companies do not disclose a relationship with each other. Or they try very hard to hide a relationship with each other, at least. Now, Seek Insurance specializes in finding Medicare plans for clients, but it is owned by Clover, so Hindenburg is saying there is a conflict of interest here. Hindenburg claims that multiple former employees said that 68% of sales were from a brokerage firm owned by the head of sales of Clover. His name is Hiram Bermudez. Hindenburg claims that both Clover and this brokerage firm owned by Hiram Bermudez, both of them do not disclose relationships with each other. Former employees have also claimed that Bermudez made his wife the owner of the brokerage firm in order to hide the relationship with Clover. So Chamath appeared on CNBC a couple months ago when he was promoting the SPAC. He said that Clover is a transparent company and does not incentivize doctors to upcode. And upcoding is is when you enter inaccurate billing information in the Medicare system in order to commit fraud. Pretty much, you're overbilling so you can collect more money in reimbursements. And going even further than that, former employees claim that the Clover Assistant, its primary function is for increasing coding reimbursement. So employees are claiming that the primary function of the Clover Assistant was actually to help the company overbill and not actually making the lives of the doctors and the patients easier. Former employees and doctors that used Clover claim that they only used it because there was an incentive due to Clover was paying them double than what normal Medicare was paying them. And a lot of doctors that used Clover, they claimed it sucks as a platform and a technology and only gave them a lot more administration issues. But they continued to use it because the incentives were so good, being that Clover paid them double what traditional Medicare did. So over the past few years, there has been a large turnaround for executives. There's been 3 different CFOs, 3 different COOs, 2 general counsels, and a new CTO in the past 4 years. Now, there's nothing wrong with this, but it does look kind of bad because it seems like there's no stable culture in the company. So the current CEO of Clover, Vivek Garipalli, owned 3 New Jersey hospitals through a company called CarePoint Health. And CarePoint Health was notorious for price gouging. The hospitals that operated under CarePoint Health charged the highest prices for emergency room treatment in the entire country. And here's an article by the New York Times that confirms this, that CarePoint is charging the highest billing rates in the nation. And down here we have another article claiming that this CarePoint hospital charged a man $9,000 for a Band-Aid for his cut finger. Hindenburg claims that in 2015, CarePoint was under a lot of regulatory scrutiny, and Garipaldi, the CEO, made a secret $1 million donation to the Jersey City mayor through a shell company. And it was later revealed that the donor was Garipaldi after the company was sued and the information got out. In 2020, Garipaldi was accused by New Jersey regulators for embezzling $157 million from his hospital network. And this caused CarePoint Health to collapse financially, meaning that they had to lay off a lot of staff and sell off a lot of equipment. And this left the hospitals crippled financially. Chamath has described Garipaldi as an absolute moneymaker. I don't think anyone's disputing that. This guy seems like a savage. Hindenburg claims that Chamath's firm received over 20 million shares of Clover, being founders' shares, and at the current price, those shares are worth $290 million. His firm received these 20 million shares in exchange for promoting the SPAC. So Hindenburg accuses Chamath of knowing about all of these issues and either participated in concealing this information or he was just completely clueless about everything. So in conclusion, Hindenburg says that Clover Health is a bad company and they recommend to stay away from it or short it. They claim that they themselves do not hold a position in Clover currently, meaning they do not have any options, no put options, no call options, no shorts, no longs, no nothing. And again, this does seem kind of odd to me, right? So why did you go through the trouble of conducting a 4-month investigation if you don't have a personal interest in this? Not saying they're lying, it just seems a bit odd, all right? So some additional information. Chelsea Clinton, which is the daughter of Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, is on the board of Clover. 98% of all of its revenue comes from the state of New Jersey, and Clover has generated consistent losses to date. As of today, Clover is $900 million in debt. The Clover assistant incorrectly diagnoses patients a lot of the time. Hindenburg claims that Garipalli is the son of two doctors, and actually his father was convicted of Medicare fraud. So exactly the same thing that Garipalli and his companies are being investigated for right now. And, you're innocent until you're proven guilty, but I'm just saying, this really doesn't look good. All right? You kind of see a correlation here between, Elizabeth Holmes and the Theranos CEO, or ex-CEO, I should say. And her father was an executive of Enron, right? Which was a major fraud. Same thing with, Dan Bilzerian, with his father being a known embezzler. Now we're seeing a lot of information coming out about Dan Bilzerian's company and how he's allegedly stealing from his company. So, again, we do see this a decent amount when it comes to CEOs and embezzling, where their parents have actually been convicted previously of embezzling. Not saying anyone is guilty of anything, but it does look pretty bad, alright? So that was Hindenburg's report, the summary of Hindenburg's report. Some very serious accusations in there. Very serious accusations. So now let's get to Clover's response and what they said in rebuttal to Hindenburg's report. So I have the article over here, but again, I'm not going to read it. I'm just going to summarize, but I'll include this in the link in the description if you guys do want to read over this. So Clover says that Chamath did know about the DOJ investigation, but Clover does not believe they are in violation of anything, and therefore they did not disclose the information to the public. Honestly, they probably should have anyway, even if they did not believe that they're doing anything wrong, because myself as an investor personally, I would like to know information like this, because it really could have an effect on your decision whether or not if you decide to put your money in the company. Clover claims that they are not aware about other ongoing investigations about Garipalli and his companies. And quite honestly here, this kind of seems like weasel words to me. They claim that they are not aware about ongoing investigations. So it kind of seems like this is a bit of plausible deniability. In case some new information does come out, they can just be like, well, we weren't aware about it, so not liable. Clover claims that they have not received any subpoenas from the Department of Justice, but the DOJ has requested information from Clover, which Clover did give the DOJ voluntarily. So no subpoena, but the DOJ did ask them for information, and they complied. So about Seek Medicare, Clover is claiming that Seek Medicare is its own entity, separate from Clover, and operates independently. They are just affiliated with each other. And both Clover and Seek Medicare are allowed to appoint board members. That's their only relationship, being at the board level of the company. Clover has provided some data here claiming that Seek was not promoting Clover over other Medicare plans. They say here, if you want to see the objectivity of Seek, we think that the results of Seek's initial sales period speak for themselves. And we see here, they list a bunch of companies, and Seek only totaled less than 1% of Clover's business. Now again here, I'll just say, this does kind of seem like weasel words, because they say Seek's initial sales period. So I'm curious to see what the sales for the current sales period are, and their percentage of business that Seek currently provides them with. So Clover acknowledges that it has paid B&H Assurance, which is Hiram Bermudez's brokerage firm. They have paid his firm $160,000 since 2017. They confirm the relationship between Clover and Bermudez's firm, but they claim that it's only so Bermudez can return to his firm with ease if he chooses to leave Clover. So they're claiming that they only maintain this relationship for the convenience of Bermudez if he chooses to leave the company. Clover claims that 8,200 current members were referred by B&H, and that's only 14% of their current members. They admit that B&H has been a strong producer, but they downplay its role in the growth of Clover. Clover claims that Bermudez did not transfer anything to his wife, but they do explain the situation more. They claim that he went through an organ transplant surgery, and during this process, him and his wife set up a broker certification. And honestly, I'm not exactly sure what this is, but it says that in the case that Bermudez died, this would allow his wife to take over his stake in the company. His wife was directly appointed by Clover to sell plans as an agent. Clover claims that they require employees to disclose potential conflicts of interest, and they do not believe there are any. They claim that they do not motivate doctors to upcode, and they do not motivate doctors to participate in other shady practices. They stand by the Clover Assistant technology. They claim that it drives clinical value, and that it's not just for grabbing more money. They acknowledge that their numbers that they're claiming that they put out there may be a bit of a stretch and may be just for marketing, but they explain how they got to their numbers. It turns out the claim that onboarded physicians used Clover Assistant for 92% of its member visits. Turns out that number was closer to 22% in reality, and actually closer to 4% when you include specialists. So Clover does acknowledge this number is a bit of a stretch. Clover disputes the claim that it is hard to remove false diagnoses from their software. Clover claims that they do not provide gift cards to generate patient leads and is in compliance with the law. Again, kind of sounds like weasel words. So they're acknowledging that they do give out gift cards, but not for corrupt reasons. Clover claims that they and CarePoint are two separate entities and operate independently. And they defend the CEO, Garipaldi, saying that he makes large donations all the time, so his donation to the Jersey City mayor should not be scrutinized, because it's normal for him, apparently. And they respond to the high turnover rate of their executives, saying that this is because they are rapidly growing and they needed different people with different skill sets for different stages of growth of the company. So quite honestly, in my opinion, this isn't the strongest rebuttal by Clover. They deny a lot of stuff. They acknowledge there's some truth in the Hindenburg report, but explain that it's overblown, and they try to downplay the seriousness of the accusations. And it kind of sounds like they're using a lot of weasel words and like lawyer terms, so they can have plausible deniability when they're pressed harder on certain questions. Now, the whole thing about Bermudez getting organ surgery and having this plan to transfer his assets to his wife if things went south, that seems pretty believable. We'll never know how true it is because it is a personal matter. Shortly after Clover put out their response to the Hindenburg report, Hindenburg put out their own response to Clover's response. So we'll get to that right now. So Hindenburg says that it's confirmed now that Chamath did know about the DOJ investigation into Clover, and in fact that he did not disclose this information to the public. And whether or not he believed that they did anything wrong, that he should have disclosed this information to investors and the public, which I do agree. They claim that they were right in this 92% number of onboarded physicians using their product. They claim that they're right in saying that number was inaccurate, and that number is actually closer to 4%, not 92%. Clover has made the claim that Seek will disclose their relationship with Clover on their new website. And Hindenburg responds saying that we don't know that this is going to be true. So I guess it still has to be seen whether or not Seek decides to disclose their relationship with Clover. So it's confirmed that old and improper diagnoses resurface about once every year. They're claiming that the software is trying to incentivize and coerce doctors into improperly diagnosing patients in order to collect more reimbursements. Hindenburg says that while Clover admits to paying B&H $160,000 directly, this does not include indirect payments, and we're not going to know what those indirect payments are unless those are disclosed. So Hindenburg is claiming that they believe there is a lot more money paid to B&H. Clover is using their weasel words here to hide that information. But we'll never know. Or maybe we will if new information comes out a little later down the road. Hindenburg disputes the claim that CarePoint operates independently from Clover, and they give evidence of this with written testimony by Garipalli to investigators, claiming that there is a relationship and they do not operate independently. Hindenburg says that Clover is not disputing the fact that CarePoint price gouged, instead just deflecting that and resorting to name calling. They just pushed it to the side and discarded it as an ad hominem attack. So Hindenburg is pretty much saying Clover is admitting that CarePoint does price gouge. So there you have it. There is the Hindenburg report, there is Clover's response to the report, and there is the response to the response. Now, I'm not saying that anyone is guilty of anything, okay? As of right now, Clover is being accused of a lot of things, but they're innocent, until further notice, at least. But I will say that it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good for the company's reputation and their credibility, and it definitely doesn't look good for potential investors. So let me know what you guys think. Do you think that Hindenburg is correct in their accusations? Do you think that Clover is correct by claiming that they're operating in compliance? Comment down below. Who do you think is right and wrong? Now, we have a post here that I found by a pharmacist in real life. This is his 2 cents on the Hindenburg report. I thought this was pretty interesting. Well, pretty much he just slams Hindenburg. This is kind of biased, but we're getting one perspective. So this is by Dun Duin. He pretty much says that the DOJ does not have a strong case. Even if it were true, it's hard to prove. He's claiming that misleading marketing and targeting the elderly and minorities is false. He's claiming that Hindenburg just doesn't understand the healthcare system and that this is actually pretty normal. He supports the software, saying it's easy to use and that it does improve the actual healthcare for the patients. He's saying that there's nothing wrong with Clover paying physicians more, and this again goes back to Hindenburg just not understanding how the healthcare system works. He says that it's going to take some time for new physicians to actually adopt and use the Clover Assistant software. So this guy Dunduin pretty much just says that a lot of these accusations have no merit. A lot of this stuff is just normal in the healthcare industry. And he is a professional pharmacist, or he claims to be at least, so he probably does know a lot more about the healthcare system than you and I do. people who are not professionals in that industry. So this post is a little bit biased, but it is good to have perspective from both sides. So if you guys want, go check this out. I will put it in the link in the description. Now let's move on to probably the most important part, and the part that most people want to know about is, what does the short interest look like for Clover? And I'll just start off by saying that nobody knows. All right? It's very murky now. There's a lot of dispute over what the real short interest is, because a lot of sites are saying different things. The data is all over the place, so no one can confirm what the real short data is. But I do have data from a few different sites, so let's go over this, and let's try to explain why the data is different on different sites. So here we have barons.com, and this is a pretty reliable site. All right, I use this site a lot for researching and doing due diligence on stocks. So Barron's claims that 147% of the float is shorted. It says that there are 143.5 million shares outstanding, and 38.5 million of those shares are being shorted. Now, if we go to a different site, this is marketbeat.com, and again, this is also a pretty reliable website, all right? I don't use it personally that much, but I have before, and generally, their information is pretty accurate. But we see here that their data is different from Barron's. So they're claiming that there are over 400 million shares outstanding, and 38.5 million of those shares are currently shorted. The total short percent of float comes out to 12.58%. So here the current short interest is actually the same as Barron's. They both agree that the short interest is 38.5 million. Where they disagree is the shares outstanding. Barron seems to think that the number of shares outstanding is significantly less, being 140 something million, and MarketBeat seems to think that the shares outstanding is over 400 million. So definitely interesting stuff here. I wonder why that is. So now let's look into some other opinions by people on Reddit, and let's get their take on why they think the short interest is what it is and their explanations for it. So this is by Thanos the Balanced. He says the CEO cannot sell off his shares until July 5th, and they have to be above $12.50. And this is according to an SEC filing. So this does seem to have merit. This does seem to be true. And he says because of this, the CEO's shares is not part of the free float. So there's other reliable sites such as S3 and FactSet that also have the short float at over 140%. Now, I can't access that data because you have to pay for it. They're claiming that the data is over 140%. So if one of you guys do have that data, can you please share it with us? I'd appreciate that. He says that S3 and FactSet are confirming their numbers and standing by it, even though Hindenburg disputes this and claims that the short interest data is wrong and should actually be a lot less. So I came across this post, and this is by Hard Track Orange, and he actually did dig up some data, which seems to be pretty reliable. So let's take a look at this. So he says that Clover has 118% short interest, and the shorts will try to tell you it's lower than that. He says that Hindenburg sent an email to FactSet to dispute the short data. And here he provides data from Vanguard, so a pretty reliable source. Vanguard is claiming that the short interest is 118% as of March 30th, 2021. And he has information down here that Garipalli has a 57.5% stake in the company, and that is a total of over 83 million shares of Class A shares. Now, this guy, 8 Balls, is a bit skeptical, and he's warning people to stay away from this trade because the data is so all over the place and nobody knows what's true and what's not. He's claiming that the short interest is about 35%, not 140%. And he goes on to say this is because he's claiming that Garipalli owns 83 million Class B shares, not Class A shares. So he's disputing Vanguard's data that Garipalli owns only Class A shares. So he's claiming that FactSet and S3 and some other companies who collect this data are in fact wrong and that they are correcting their numbers today. Not really sure how accurate this is. So that's really all the information I could find about the short data. It's still very confusing. Nobody knows what to believe. Nobody knows what's true and what's fake. A lot of these sites that provide the data are standing by their data. Hindenburg disputes the data. You apes, a lot of you believe the data. A lot of you are disputing the data. And we have data from very reliable sources, all right? Many different sites, all very reliable sources, and they're all saying different things. So we're in a bit of a tough situation here. Legit, nobody knows what's true and what's not true. And this whole thing about Garipalli's shares, whether it's 83 million shares, are in fact Class A or Class B, and how that affects the float and the overall short float percentage, it's all really confusing because, again, nobody knows. Does he in fact have Class A shares or Class B shares? Vanguard says he in fact has Class A shares, but people are saying Vanguard is wrong. And do I think Vanguard is wrong? They're usually not, but I can't say that they're not in this situation, all right? Like, I don't know. Nobody knows. So we do need more clarification here. We need to find out if Garipalli is holding Class A or Class B shares. Then we need to take that number and consider what the total shares outstanding should be. And from there, we can determine the true short percentage or a relatively accurate short percentage. But for right now, it's all over the place. If someone has better information or more clarification, please share with us. That'd be very helpful. Now, I'm going to give you guys my personal take on all of this, right? And if I'm going to be participating in this Clover trade and taking a position. In terms of the Hindenburg report, I can't say if it's accurate or not, or whether if Clover is guilty of what they're being accused of or not, but I will say that it doesn't look great. All right, it's not a great look for Clover, especially when you've just taken your company public and you're looking to raise money and generate growth. The last thing you need is active investigations by the Department of Justice on you and this very well written report by a reliable short selling firm that's accusing you of multiple infractions. I think that Clover's response to the Hindenburg report wasn't the best. It was kind of weak, honestly. All they really did was deny a bunch of stuff, and they admitted some stuff, but downplayed the severity of the accusations. And then they just went on to stand by their own product. And you can tell that they were using a lot of weasel words and lawyer terms in the case that if they ever needed to, they could come out and claim plausible deniability. And then Hindenburg's response to Clover's response was, you pretty much confirmed that all of our findings were accurate or relatively accurate. So overall, in terms of this report coming out, I would say it doesn't look great for Clover. Now, when it comes to the short interest data, I really don't know. I cannot put an opinion on this. I don't know what to believe anymore because I use a lot of these sites and they're usually pretty accurate and they're all saying some pretty different stuff. It's not just me investigating. A lot of people online are investigating and are sharing their findings with each other. And even then, nobody can come to an agreement. Some people are saying Garapali has Class A. Some people are saying he is Class B. Some people are saying it should be included in the float, and some people are saying it shouldn't. The outstanding shares should be this number or this number. So seriously, nobody knows. It's all super, super confusing. And personally, because of this, I have decided that I will not be participating in this trade or this short squeeze for at least this moment. I want to see on Monday how trading goes, if in fact it is being squeezed, because I have no doubt that there's going to be some type of squeeze, all right? We can accurately predict that the real short number is probably somewhere between, we've seen as low as 15% to 35% to 140%. So really just a very wide spectrum of what the real short data could be. So the way I'm going to play this is I'm going to watch how this develops, and if I see an opportunity to get in, I may possibly do that. But in the very beginning, I'm going to stay on the sidelines and just observe you guys for now. That's how I'm going to play this. So yeah, that is the video. That is all the data I have found on Clover. That is me going over what Clover is, Hindenburg's accusations toward Clover and Clover's response, and then me digging up as much short data as I could for you guys. But still, it's a very imperfect picture of what's actually going on here. Comment below, what do you guys think about this whole Clover short squeeze? Who do you believe? Do you believe Clover? Do you believe Hindenburg? And who do you believe on the short interest data? Do you believe that it is in fact above 140% or it's more like 30%? Comment below. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out on Monday. And I'm very excited for the market to open. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate everyone taking the time out of their weekend to come watch my content. Hit the like button. Please subscribe. And if you like my content and want to support my channel, please check out my Patreon. Link in the description down below. Alright, you apes, you already know. Diamond hands to the moon. Not financial advice. I'm Ty. This is Smarter Gambling. I see you guys Monday. Peace out.